$60,000 or you lose everything? That's what Carol Hamilton said, standing on my porch, voice dripping arrogance, waving a stack of papers like she owned my future. You ever seen someone try to shake you down for land they got no business even looking at? That was me 3 miles outside her precious HOA boundaries, 20 hectares apiece hard-earned, and she's at my door acting like some medieval landlord. I'd bought this place to escape exactly these people, but here she was demanding tribute. My blood boiled, yeah, that happened. And it didn't take long for this thing to turn from crazy to criminal. Let me back up a sec. After 15 years in uniform, 3 deployments, I was just looking for quiet. Nothing fancy, just a tired old barn, a farmhouse that creaked in the wind, and a sunrise that meant something. The deed dated back to 1952. Independent agricultural property confirmed and triple-checked at the county. Out here, sunrise was my only schedule. The old dining room became my cyber shop, fence line walks, and coffee with the hills turning purple. I'd finally found peace. Or so I thought. That peace lasted 47 days. On day 48, a certified brick from Maplewood Estates lands on my porch, legal paper, thick enough to break a toe if you dropped it. Dear Mr. Morgan, it started all business-like. Something about my property now being part of their extended assessment and environmental impact zone. The breakdown of fees almost made me laugh until I saw the total $60,000. 18 grand for assessment, 25 for environmental monitoring, 12 for infrastructure, 5 for admin, a 30-day deadline or they'd unleash the lawyers. They even attached a map. Just drew a circle 8 kilometers out from their fancy gates and decided everything inside belonged to them now. It was so bold it was almost impressive if it wasn't aimed right at my life. They wrapped it up in legalese, quoted environmental statutes, property impact studies, safety standards, the kind of language that sounds like it's got the force of law if you squint at it sideways. They even included high-res photos of my land shot from God knows where, little notes about runoff issues and vegetation growth and structures needing compliance. It was clear they'd done this before, and they were betting I'd fold like every other outlier. I spent the whole morning on the phone, county registrar first, who actually laughed when I read her the letter. "Sir, they got as much legal right as the Queen of England," she said. Next was my real estate attorney, and he was blunter. Either it was an insane mistake or outright fraud. HOAs don't get to draw circles and call it law, he told me. State lines are real, boundaries are real, and you're not in their crosshairs legally. So I wrote back, polite but solid, attached every legal document I had, and told them to take their scam somewhere else. Any sane organization would have checked their maps and dropped it. Not Maplewood. The pressure just got sneakier, more phone calls. Cars parked on my road. Someone in a black SUV taking pictures along my fence line. Military training taught me not to ignore gut feelings, and every instinct screamed this wasn't just nosy neighbors or some paperwork slip. This was organized, and I was being watched. So I started digging. Maplewood's president was Carol Hamilton. 52 real estate, been running the show for 15 years from a $2 million mansion. Public records said she'd handled dozens of property disputes, everyone settled before seeing a judge. Patterns like that aren't random. She was used to getting her way, used to scaring people off. And then she started showing up first in her black Escalade, blocking my driveway. Then with her little army, 2 board members in matching polos, an environmental inspector with gadgets, a legal assistant with more briefcases than sense. They spread out taking soil samples, measuring, snapping photos of everything, including my coffee mug, like the fences meant nothing. Carol led the way, calm and icy opening, with a jab at my family history. "Your father made similar mistakes about legal compliance," she said, smiling like a viper. "We all know how that turned out." She knew exactly where to hit. She threw my military background in my face, called me out for not understanding real estate law, claimed her community responsibilities were bigger than my legal rights. She even threatened my business, dropping a portfolio of asset recovery projections and short sale pipelines on my porch, pure intimidation. Her message was clear. I was just another target, and she'd done this before. The kicker. That night, I found a thumb drive in my mailbox labeled with a blocky, ominous note, CH destroyed 5 families. Same playbook. RS. Inside were files, deeds, clippings, digital trails, proof she'd been running this racket for years, picking off veterans, the elderly single parents, immigrants. Her whole operation was a factory: find someone isolated, bury them in legal threats, then scoop up their property for pennies. 48 hours later, the real assault began. A letter from a big-name law firm full of environmental accusations, groundwater contamination, soil health, property value, harm, you name it. Within days, my biggest client dropped me. 2 more froze their contracts. Then Carol called sympathetic, urging me to cooperate before things get worse. Local businesses stopped delivering. My internet upgrade was suddenly on hold, pending permits. Neighbors I'd waved to for months started looking the other way. I'd gone from small-town new guy to social leper overnight. Carol wasn't just after my land, she was after my life, using law as a weapon. She'd turned the system inside out, weaponizing gossip, red tape, and fear. Military training didn't prep me for this kind of war, one fought with whispers and legalese instead of rifles and rules. Every trip to town, every call, every email could be another blow. She wanted me broken, isolated, desperate enough to settle. And I'll tell you, she damn near got her wish. 1 week after her visit, Carol filed a lawsuit accusing me of being an environmental hazard. The paperwork filled binders, fake photos of runoff, doctored lab reports, expert testimony. Temporary injunctions followed. Stop all farming, evacuate, no access to my own well. The local news picked up the story. Veteran threatens community with pollution, and neighbors started whispering about that guy out on the farm. My attorney said it was a slam dunk in my favor, but the Judge Crowley shot down every motion cited with Carol overruled objections. Turns out Crowley owed $180,000 to a casino where Carol's husband worked. She had him in her pocket, and the game was rigged from day one. 3 days later, I was ordered off my own land. My consulting business was in ruins, my cameras cut evidence, destroyed garden trashed, and a chemical hazard staged on my barn for effect. The sheriff shrugged me off civil matter. The low point came during a call with my father, who'd lost his own farm decades ago to a different flavor of corruption. "Sometimes the house always wins, son," he told me. "Maybe it's time to fold. Pride don't pay legal fees." I almost took the settlement, but then that thumb drive, the one from RS, changed everything. I opened it desperate. Turns out RS was a real person. Robert Stevens, a guy Carol had destroyed years earlier. We met up 2 battered men, one with a limp, both with nothing left to lose. Bob had the receipts, years of fraud, forged mortgages, payoffs, insider emails, a judge in her pocket, an expert in environmental science whose real expertise was gambling debt. Bob's life had been wrecked, but he'd been collecting evidence ever since. We realized together that Carol's one weakness was her overconfidence. She got lazy when she thought she'd won. We put together a plan: military-grade surveillance, Bob's inside knowledge, my tech skills. It was like planning a covert op: parabolic mics, cloud backups, timed recordings. We caught Carol at an HOA strategy meeting plotting her next moves: 12 more properties in her site's coded language for bribes, admissions of manipulating veterans because they respect authority. We got every word. Our evidence package was airtight: audio emails, money trails matching bribe payments to court dates. We tipped off the FBI, prepped the media, packaged everything so it'd stand up in federal court. And then Carol overreached. She called in the media for my public eviction, turned it into a spectacle, planning to humiliate me on camera. But this time we were ready. As the cameras rolled, Bob strode out, briefcase in hand, introduced himself as a former partner and HOA board member. then played the audio for everyone to hear. Carol's own voice talking about profit projections from forced sales and military backgrounds make these targets easier to manipulate. The crowd gasped. Reporters swarmed her. Her face went from smug to ghostly in seconds. She tried to shout us down, call the evidence fake, but no one was buying it, not anymore. Within hours, Carol's house was raided. Judge Crowley recused himself. Walsh fled to Canada and got picked up at the border. Dr. Stevens lost his license. Taylor cut a deal to testify, and the dominoes kept falling. Families started coming forward. Old letters, forced sales horror stories that matched mine. Line for line, the federal investigation expanded. Restitution funds were set up. Carol's mansion was seized and the HOA was rebuilt from the ground up. Bob became interim president. I ran cybersecurity and started teaching neighbors how to spot legal intimidation before it took root. We turned Carol's old house into a community center. Poetic justice, if there ever was one, and set up free legal aid classes on property rights workshops for anyone who might get caught in a similar scam. Our nonprofit property rights defense network started getting calls from all over: veterans, retirees, immigrants, anyone who'd felt that HOA squeeze and didn't know where to turn. I testified before the state legislature. Bob and I watched as the reforms we fought for actually started changing things. And the kicker: 1 year after Carol's sentencing, 15 years in federal $3.8 million restitution, and barred from ever holding HOA office again, a young couple came to the community center, baby on one hip, clutching a binder of threatening letters. We walked them through their options, gave them the tools my dad never had, and sent them home with hope. Now, when I look out across my land, fences rebuilt by neighbors who used to avoid me, kids playing in the garden, where once there was only fear, I know what real justice feels like. It's not about payback or even getting your stuff back. It's about ending the cycle. My father's old photo hangs in the community center, his eyes finally at peace. So here's my question. When does protecting your land cross the line into protecting your community? When does justice require you to fight not just for yourself, but for everyone like you? Drop your thoughts below. And if you've ever stared down a bully, HOA, or otherwise, share your story. Let's make sure nobody ever has to fight this fight alone again. If you made it this far, you're one of us now. So hit subscribe, drop a comment, and tell me what would you have done if Carol Hamilton showed up on your porch.